my first time here. You guys are a welcoming bunch. I love it. So here we are Canada, in a most crucial time where we must decide whether we're going to elect for a fourth term a Liberal government that has left us with a weakened economy, unaffordable food and housing, rising crime, and vulnerable in the face of the threats of Donald Trump? Or are we going to elect a conservative government that's going to put Canada first for a change? You know, my husband began this journey 3 years ago when he became the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. He has been traveling from coast to coast to coast to step away from the Ottawa bubble and the elites so that he can listen to Canadians directly. Because what we need is a government for the people, by the people. Leadership is not born from the boardroom of the elite. From true love for our country, our true north, strong and free. Now, my husband has been doing this for most of his life. He has been right here at home fighting for all of us. He's been fighting for our youth, our families, our seniors. Meanwhile, Mr. Carney, a man who seeks the highest public office, he looks down on those who have been here at home, telling us that my husband doesn't know how the world works. Well, I'll tell you what. He knows how Canada works and how to make Canada work for all of us. I obviously love and support of my husband's policies. I truly, really believe they're going to help all of us. But to truly understand the why, you need to understand the man behind of it all and the family standing by his side. My husband, he was born in Calgary from a teenage mother who gave him out for adoption to 2 school teachers from Saskatchewan. They work really hard and they live paycheck to paycheck in a humble house. Pierre fought for everything he had. Nothing has been given to him. I was born in Caracas, Venezuela, and my family migrated here in 1995 when I was 8 years old, in Montreal, in the east end of Montreal. 6 of us, we lived in a small bedroom apartment, and a 3-bedroom apartment in the basement. And my father's first job when we got here was to pick up fruits and vegetables, because that's the only thing he could do to feed the family. Later on, he had 3 minimum wage jobs to make ends meet. By the time that I was 17, I had moved out of the house and become 100% financially independent. By the time that I was 19, I left Montreal, moved to Ottawa. I took a student loan, put myself through university, worked full-time at the same time so that I can pay for rent and food. By the time that I was 25, a few months before I met my husband, I was still a single woman, and I had saved enough money, $25,000, to put a down payment on a little townhouse that had 2 bedrooms. Thank you. I had done all that by myself, and that was 2012, 3 years before the Liberal government took office. That was the Canadian promise we had in this country. If you work hard, you get ahead. And that is what we are fighting for, to restore the Canadian promise. So my family is standing united in this fight with all of you, and we need all of you to stand united with us. So ladies and gentlemen, it is my absolute pleasure to share with you my husband and the next Prime Minister of Canada.
Thank you, Prince Edward Island! Who is ready for change in Canada? Who's ready to get rid of those terrible tolls on the bridge? Who's ready to axe some taxes? Who's ready to support our fish harvesters and farmers? Who's ready to bring home our resource jobs and our economic might so that we can stand up to President Trump from a position of strength? And who's ready to put Canada first for a change? Wow, what an incredible group. What a crowd. Jamie, have you seen a crowd like this before? Wow. When was the last time we got this many Islanders together for a political event? Are we breaking some records here? Look at this incredible Conservative team. We have Natalie Jameson, Jamie Foxx, James Elward, and Logan McClellan. Give it up for the Canada First team. There they are. Look at them. You know, Jamie is a wise man. I'm not saying that he's old, I'm saying he's wise. And so, you know, when I was a young man in my political career and speaking faster than thinking, getting into a little bit of trouble, I thought I'd give Jamie a call and sit down with him in his office, seek some counsel from someone with some extra wisdom. So he brought me into his office, he sat me down, and I told him my troubles. And he said, I think I have a solution for you. And he pointed up to a fish that he had caught that is mounted on the wall. And he said, you see that fish up there? If he'd kept his mouth shut, he'd still be alive. I didn't listen to his advice, but anyway, it's great. Have a seat, relax, make yourself at home. It's great to be in Atlantic Canada. Look who we have, the great Gail Shea. Yeah, wow. Come on up here. Wow, Gail Shea. Oh my. Wasn't she a great member of Parliament and minister for Prince Edward Island? Wow. Wow. Isn't she amazing? What a legend. And are you still busy these days? You've got your own little farm operation, don't you? What are you growing there? Blueberries. Well, they're going to the States. Are you sure about that? Well, they're blueberries. At least they're the right color, eh? Yeah. That's our favorite color. Well, we're very proud of Gail. We have an incredible history of fighting for Prince Edward Islanders. You know, the 4 silent Liberal MPs, where are they? Where are they? Witness Protection Program. You know, they've been in there for 10 years. They've been going around the island claiming they were going to get rid of the bridge tolls. Never got anything done. Now, on the eve of the election, they're sprinting around begging for your vote. They voted for the carbon tax to hike it up for 7 years. Now they say on the eve of the election, oh, they're going to hide it from the gas pump for 28 days to trick you into voting for them to bring it even higher. Happy April Fool's Day. And then I know we're all rightly very angry at the unjustifiable tariffs and trade barriers that the U.S. president is imposing on our country. What a betrayal that is. But isn't it even crazier that it was our own Liberal government that imposed a ban on the export of PEI potatoes to the U.S.? You know, I mean, I've heard of foreign governments hitting Canada with tariffs. I've never heard of our own government hitting our own country. And we have the best, most ethical, responsible potato farmers in the world who have helped, who produce right here in Prince Edward Island. Is Alex Doherty here? Is Alex here? Where's Alex? Is he here? He's where? Oh, there he is over there. Alex, one of the most famous potato farmers around. He had me out to his farm. He made me a farmer for a day. People asked me if I was a good farmer that day. I said I was outstanding in my field. I know, it's a dad joke. But Alex has been leading the charge, and you know, it has been a Conservative MP from Alberta, MP Barlow, fighting for the potato farmers in PEI. Imagine if we had... Imagine if we had 4 Canada First Conservative members of Parliament putting PEI first, fighting for our farmers, our fish harvesters, our workers, our islanders. It's just a symbol of everything that's gone wrong after the lost Liberal decade, with rising food prices, going up 37% faster in Canada than in the U.S. In fact, housing costs have doubled, rising more here in Canada than in any other G7 country. Our real estate is now the most expensive, as we have the fewest homes per capita of any country in the group of 7 nations, even though we have by far the most land to build on. An entire generation is blocked from the dream of home ownership after this lost Liberal decade. Increasingly, crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder run rampant in our once tranquil and safe streets. We see despair in the faces of our young people who don't know how they will move forward with their plans to enjoy a family and build equity in a future home. We have people giving up on the future of this country. And more than ever, we are reliant on the Americans because our very own government blocks the resources that are in our ground from coming to the surface and getting off to market. My friends, the question in the election is very simple. After the lost Liberal decade of costs and crime up and our economy down under Trump's thumb, are we going to give the Liberals a 4th term in power, or is it Or is it time to put Canada first for a change with a new... Bring it home. Bring it home. We're going to bring it home because we don't want a fourth Liberal term of rising costs and crime and falling economy under America's thumb. Rather, we need a new Conservative government that will put Canada first by axing taxes, building homes, unleashing our resources, and bringing home to Canada our jobs and production so that we can stand up to the Americans from a position of strength. Le choix devant nous, c'est est-ce qu'on veut un quatrième mandat des libéraux après une décennie perdue, des coûts qui sont élevés, une économie qui est en baisse et plus dépendante que jamais sur les Américains, ou est-ce qu'on a besoin d'un nouveau gouvernement pour mettre le Canada d'abord, pour faire changement en éliminant les taxes et les impôts, en récoltant nos ressources naturelles et en ramenant nos emplois ici pour qu'on puisse se tenir debout face à Donald Trump avec la force. C'est ça le choix. C'est ça le choix. Now, the Liberals have, what's that? I can do it. I agree with you on that. That's why I'm here. I wouldn't be here if I couldn't. But the Liberals are going to try to pull a fast one on you. They've replaced Justin Trudeau with his longtime economic advisor and hand-picked successor. But it's the same old Liberal gang, same Liberal ministers, same Liberal MPs, same Liberal strategists making the same Liberal promises, and they will get exactly the same Liberal results. That's precisely why Donald Trump has endorsed Mark Carney. He understands that Carney will keep Canada weak. After 10 years of driving our resource jobs and hundreds of billions of dollars south, making us completely dependent on the Americans for the vast majority of our exports and all of our energy, and giving $500 billion of net investment to the Americans, that's Canadian money building American pipelines, American mines, American businesses for American workers. Donald Trump would like to continue that weakness as long as he can. And so multiple times he has endorsed Mark Carney, whom he understands to be good for America or his vision of America, even though it's not good for Canada. Mr. Carney moved his headquarters from Canada to the United States just 6 days after Trump brought in his tariffs. He stashes his corporate cash in overseas Caribbean tax havens that allow him to pay low taxes while everyone else, single moms, small businesses, and seniors are stuck with the big fat Liberal tax bill imposed over here. He has multiple conflicts of interest that will allow foreign governments to exploit him and turn him against our own country. And just today, Mark Carney gave Donald Trump the best gift of all. He announced that his government would keep in place the No New Pipelines Law C-69. M. Carney a donné un grand cadeau à Donald Trump. M. Trump qui a déjà donné son support à M. Carney. M. Carney a dit qu'il va garder en place la loi C-69 anti-pipeline, anti-ressources naturelles, ce qui va nous forcer de continuer de vendre nos ressources aux Américains au prix bas et enlever la richesse du Canada, nous rendant plus dépendants. This bill, this law, blocks Canadian pipelines from ever being built. It basically bans the construction of pipelines. That's why we have to give literally 90% of all of our energy exports to the Americans, 100% of our natural gas. We can't get it to Tidewater to send it to Europe or Asia. In fact, do you know that the energy we send from Western Canada to Quebec and Ontario has to go through American-fed pipelines, then comes back into Canada, which means we're totally dependent on them even to sell our own energy to ourselves. And with today's news that Mr. Carney will keep that law in place, he will guarantee we will always have to beg for the Americans to support our biggest export sector. My friends, That is a recipe that we have seen played out over the last decade. It is not change. It is more of the same. It is more weakness. What we need now is strength. We need to build pipelines, dig mines, and take back control of our economic future. For a change. And the question in this election will be whether we continue to weaken our economy and hand over our resources to an increasingly unpredictable and hostile American leadership, or whether we bring home the production here. Bring it home. It's a very simple goal. And that's why we have a Bring It Home economic plan. Our plan starts with a big, powerful Bring It Home tax cut on work, investment, energy, and home building. The idea is to reward those who build things, make things, move things, and create things. It starts with rewarding work. Income tax. Income tax is the fine you pay for the crime of working hard. There's this great meme the other day I saw. This kid was in a park with his dad. His kid has his head buried in his hands. He's bawling his eyes out. He had just asked his dad, what is an income tax for him? And his dad said, well, it's just like your school report card, only the opposite. The harder you work, the worse you do, right? The more you make, the more you pay. And as a result, it's no wonder that people might say, I'm not going to take that overtime shift. I'm not going to work hard to get that bonus or promotion, because at the end of the day, the government's going to get it all. And that holds us all back. It punishes our hardworking people at a time when we most need them to get ahead. And that's why I'm proud to announce that a Canada First Conservative government will cut income taxes by 15% for the average worker and senior. This is a tax cut for waitresses and welders. It's a tax cut for the retired couple who are having to pull their income out of their RSP or their pension at high income tax rates. Paying less will allow them to have a more beautiful retirement. It is a tax cut for the struggling single mom who wonders how she will pay the bills and feed her kids. It is a tax cut that rewards work and allows you to bring more home. That's why we call it the Bring It Home tax cut. But we also have to cut taxes on energy. Energy powers our economy. It's necessary for our farmers who bring our beautiful potatoes out of the field, for our fishery, for our industry that build this. Here we are in McDougall Steel. They make steel here, the steel that is literally the bones of our economic civilization. The steel workers. Now, the Liberal carbon tax has raised the cost of energy over the last 7 years. Now, as I said, today, 28 days before the election, they hide it from the pump and expect you to be grateful that they're going to give you a temporary holiday from the tax that they imposed on you in the first place, while they kept in place the carbon tax law, which will allow them to flip a switch the day after the election and reinstate the tax all over again. What's more is that they've kept the tax throughout this month and into the future rising on Canadian industry in the hopes that you won't notice, because of course they think that you just don't know that a steel company that pays a carbon tax will have to obviously pass it on to the automaker and therefore onto your car or onto the apartment complex that helps hold up that building, and then therefore in higher rent to the people, or in lower wages to the workers who work in the industrial sectors. Meanwhile, the Americans have no carbon tax whatsoever. So here we have it. While Trump is tariffing our heavy industry, Carney's hitting the same businesses with higher industrial taxes, which will force their production south of the border, making us yet more helpless and more reliant on the Americans. And so I'm here today to say that a Canada First Conservative government we'll make a big change, and that is we will axe the tax for everyone, for everything, for real, for good, for a change. And then we've got to cut taxes on investment. Investment is everything you see in this, all of these machines. That takes investment. You don't have these machines, then you can't make the products that come out of this factory or warehouse. It is the trucks that our carpenters drive around. It is the tools that are used, the assembly line materials, the CNC, the conveyor belts. All of that requires investment. In Canada today, we get about $15,000 of investment for every worker. In the States, it's $28,000. So the American, and that's both in US dollars. So the American worker is getting almost twice as much tools and technology accumulating. No wonder that in an hour worked, Americans generate 83 US dollars. In an hour worked here in Canada, it's 53 US dollars. So they're making more money faster, even though we have better and smarter workers. That's because they have more investment. So how do we fix that? We have to cut taxes on investment. And that's why I've announced 2 measures to do that. First of all, I will bring in what I call the Canadian Reinvestment Tax Cut. 0 capital gains tax if you reinvest the money in Canada. Bring it home. Bring it home. You can imagine a retiring small businessman, instead of putting the money in the American stock market, he'll realize that if he reinvests it in the Canadian side of the border, he can defer his capital gains tax. A Canadian farmer who might retire and sell the farm to his kids can reinvest that money maybe in a local restaurant, or he could buy Canadian stocks which fund Canadian businesses that hire Canadian workers and buy Canadian machines. This will bring our money home. It will allow our people to roll over their investments and grow more and more. The government's still going to get its pound of salt. Later on, when you cash out for good, well, that's when you'll pay the capital gains tax. But at that point, there'll be more money and more wealth generated, so the government will actually get more in the long run, and in the meantime, we'll get more investment to supercharge our economy and bring home the investment it takes to stand up to the Americans. And for the elderly widow who might be inheriting some money from her newly deceased husband, or have a one-time disposition, or a couple that sells their home to downsize and they have extra money, we're going to allow you an extra $5,000 to put into your tax-free savings account each year, as long as that $5,000 is exclusively invested right here in Canada. And then we're going to tackle the inflation tax. The inflation tax is a sneaky tax, an immoral tax, and an unfair tax. The inflation tax happens when the government prints money to pay its bills. They run out of cash. They don't want you to know that they're taking more from you. So instead of raising the tax rate through a vote in Parliament that would generate a lot of controversy, they simply have the central bank produce more and more and more cash that goes into the economy, but first into their coffers. The very wealthy get their hands on it through the financial system. Everything inflates in price, as we saw over the last 4 years. We saw that the Liberals increased our money supply from $1.8 trillion to $2.5 trillion, a 40% increase, during which time our economy only grew by 4%. In other words, the money was growing 10 times faster than the stuff that money buys. If you have an economy with 10 potatoes and $10, it's $1 a potato. If you increase the money supply to 20, but you still only have 10 potatoes, you're not twice as rich. It's just that each potato costs twice as much. Now, that might be good for Alex over there. But the truth is, it would means that you lose your purchasing power as the government creates more cash and devalues the purchasing power of the dollars that you earn. The cause, though, is over government spending. Government is nearly doubled in size in the last 10 years. They've doubled the national debt. increasing it to over $1 trillion. We need to rein in out-of-control government spending. And so we will, yes, we will. We will cut bureaucracy, consultants. We will cut back on useless foreign aid that is directed to dictators, terrorists, and global bureaucracies. And we'll bring in a common sense dollar for dollar law, very simple principle. It's the way single moms, small businesses, and seniors run their household budgets. If they want to spend more on one thing, they have to spend less on another or get a bargain on both. In government, that's not the case. Politicians are the only creatures in the universe that don't have to live with scarcity. They just pass the scarcity on to someone else. By passing a dollar for dollar law that requires them find savings for their new spending within their own departments, that will force them to hunt down waste, maximize use of limited resources, and maybe forego new spending that it turns out is not necessary after all. You've been pinching your pennies long enough. I think it's time the government started pinching pennies too. But for you to bring home more of those dollars and paychecks, you need a home to bring it to. And as I said, housing costs have doubled. The reason for that is not because we lack the land, labor, or lumber. We have more of that than anyone else in the world. In fact, housing should be dirt cheap because we have the most dirt to build on. But what is the number one cost going into a new home? It's government. Government taxes, bureaucracy, permitting charges, delays, lawyers, consultants, lobbyists that are needed to get the project approved in the first place. We have the second slowest building permits in the OECD, and 1/3 of the cost of a new home in most places in Canada is direct taxes alone. And so I will lead the charge in cutting the bureaucracy and the taxes to get the homes built, starting with axing the sales tax on new homes to save you up to $65,000 on your purchase. Right there. And we will incentivize the local municipalities to speed up permits, free up land, and cut development charges to build, build, build. We'll sell off 6,000 federal buildings and thousands of acres of federal land to build new homes. But we need the people who are going to build those homes, and so our new policy to train up the next generation, I like to call it boots, not suits. We're going to back the trades. Do we have any trades workers in the room? All right. What kind of trades do we have here? What do we got here? An iron worker. Do you work right here at McDougall? What do you work at? Oh, in Calgary. Welcome, a great Westerner. That's where I was born. Yeah. Anybody else? What do we got? Yes, sir. What is your trade? Carpenter. All right. He knows how to swing a hammer, how to build a home. We need more of those. We're not letting you retire. We need you to build about another 200 homes. Can you handle that? Well, listen, the problem is we've been putting all of our tax dollars into exclusively white-collar university education. I have no problem with that. I went to university. It's great. But if I had one piece of advice for young people, get a trade. I would say get a trade. Way better. The business people I meet who run businesses about this size, and I go to hundreds of these every single year to meet the workers and talk to their leaders. And their CEOs, the people running them, they're all tradespeople now. They're not lawyers, they're not MBAs, they've got a trade, and they use the trade not just to do the trade-related work, but to use the problem solving. They know how stuff works. We need more people like that in our economy if we're going to rebuild our nation, literally and metaphorically. And so we have a plan. Our plan is very clear. We will provide the funds through the UTIP program to union and employer trading halls so that we can train up 350,000 young tradespeople. We will reinstate the $4,000 apprenticeship grant to help the young apprenticeship get off the ground. And we're going to harmonize the health and safety rules. You're from the iron worker from Calgary. I don't know if you've gone through this, but a lot of tradesmen tell me when they go to another place in Canada, they have to redo health and safety courses 4 days without pay, even though the course is almost identical from province to province. We're going to harmonize that up so that when you travel around, you can just get to work. And right now, a CEO can write off the cost of his private jet, but a tradesman is capped at $4,000 a year for the cost of traveling around the country. If you're going out to Fort Mac 15 times a year, you're not going to be paying for that with $4,000. The rule in our tax system is supposed to be that you can write off the costs you incurred to earn the taxable income. So very simply put, I'm going to make it fair. We're going to ensure that our tradespeople can write off the full cost of food, transportation, and accommodation to travel from job to job. And boy, oh boy, are they ever going to have a lot of work to do? Because we got a lot of stuff to build. We've got big plans. You know, the great Canadian energy companies, 14 of them, put out a letter to all the leaders last week. They said, these are the 5 things we need if you want to take back control of our economy from the Americans and make us self-reliant and independent. Here they are. Number 1, you've got to get rid of you have to axe the industrial carbon tax. Done. 2, they said, you need to repeal the anti-pipeline law C-69. And I'm proud to say that I will repeal that law and replace it with a simple law that allows us to protect our environment, consult First Nations, but get decisions made quickly, including within 6 months, so we can get busy building. Next, they said we have to get rid of the cap on Canadian energy, a government mandate the Liberals put in, capping the amount of oil and gas that we can produce from our sector in Western Canada, a cap that does not apply on Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, or the United States of America. Every time we cap a barrel here in Canada, another one pops up in a more polluting foreign jurisdiction. We get richer, the world gets dirtier, and a lot more dangerous as hostile regimes increasingly monopolize the sector. And that is why I am pleased to state that I will scrap the cap and unleash unlimited production of Canadian energy. Four, they said that we want to get our approval times down to 6 months. Right now, it's 17 years to get a mine approved in Canada. Can you imagine that? Incredible. If you have a baby today, it'd almost be old enough to vote before a mine would actually be approved to get shovel in the ground. You can imagine why, after the lost Liberal decade, we don't produce our own stuff here. We have the 6th biggest supply of lithium, and yet we're importing it from China. We have the 3rd biggest supply of oil, yet we're importing it from Saudi Arabia and the United States. We have the 5th biggest production of natural gas, yet we can't ship it anywhere outside of North America for lack of liquefaction facilities. And that's because it is interminable delays that stand in the way. By having short approval times, we can, yes, protect the environment, but get to yes, get decisions made, and unlock hundreds of billions of dollars in investment and jobs for our people. So we will get the approval time down to 6 months, and we'll have a rule: 1 project, 1 environmental review, 1 and done. On all of these issues, on every single one of these issues, Mark Carney is opposed. He opposes every single necessary step that energy companies say are required to make us independent from the Americans. He literally said that half of our oil will have to be stuck in the ground to achieve his net zero obsessions. Meanwhile, he profits by investing in foreign pipelines and American coal. while he leaves our resources in the ground and our workers without paychecks. My friends, we're going to start to put Canada first, and that is the decision in this election. We cannot afford a fourth Liberal term of weakness and poverty. We need a Canada First government for a change. You know, this permitting economy we have, it's like the permission economy. You know, I was asking a businessman the other day, what do we need to do to help you succeed? And he said, give me permission to succeed. Get out of the way and let me do it. And the same goes in many of our other sectors. You know, we have 20,000 immigrant doctors and 32,000 immigrant nurses who cannot work in Canada because there's no way for them to prove their qualifications. So when I went to get my eye surgery done, I met a technician there who works 10 days a month in Abu Dhabi, in the United Arab Emirates, doing eye surgeries. It's an extremely advanced country. Here in Canada, we won't give him a license, so he has to work as a technician while people are waiting in line to get treatment. So apparently operating on Emirati eyeballs are different than Canadian eyeballs. In Toronto, they say if you have a heart attack, don't call 911. Call an Uber because the driver is probably a doctor. Crazy. And 85% of Filipino nurses are actually banned from working in nursing in Canada, whereas in the States, within a few weeks, they can take an internationally recognized exam to prove their qualifications so they can get to work. Even Canadian kids who go to med school abroad can't come back home and practice medicine at home because of this gatekeeping. We know the solution. We have the red seal for the trades. Let's create a blue seal for the professions. So our brilliant doctors can take a test, prove they're qualified, reduce the wait times, get working, earning powerful paychecks, making us all better off. These are the kinds of common sense solutions that will allow us all to bring more home. But we need to bring home safety. And after the lost Liberal decade, we see more crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder in our streets. Do we see any of that in Charlottetown and other towns? Yeah, this is an increasing problem that we see out of control. We have a 50% increase in violent crime under the Liberals. We have a 116% increase in gun crime. The good news is that we don't have a lot of criminals in Canada. The bad news is they're very productive. A small number of criminals reoffend over and over and over again. Rampant reoffenders who terrorize our streets and leave our people helpless, but are released within an hour of their arrest under C-75, which requires judges release offenders under, quote, the least onerous conditions at the, quote, earliest opportunity, or C-5, that allows a career car thief to do his sentence in the comfort of his living room, watching Netflix or playing Grand Theft Auto. And more seriously, you have C-83, the Liberal law that allows mass murderers like Paul Bernardo out of a maximum security penitentiary into relative freedom in a medium pen. My friends, the days of the hug-a-thug, catch-and-release Liberal system are going to end. We will bring mandatory prison time for serious offenders. We will repeal the Liberal catch-and-release C-75, C-5, C-83, and we will bring in a new rule that denies any repeat offender who has serious track record of crime from bail, probation, parole, or house arrest. It will be jail, not bail, jail, not bail. Yeah. And then there's the drugs that are ravaging our streets. We've lost 50,000 people to drug overdoses. More have died of drugs than died fighting for Canada in the Second World War, if you can imagine that. It's just and 40 milligrams, which is a tiny amount, can kill 20 people. Yet the offenders that get caught are often released. The Liberals eliminated mandatory jail time for those who market these deadly poisons. They effectively decriminalized it and encouraged prosecutors not to go after the offense. They've been subsidizing tax-funded opioids. This has led to a terrible tragedy for all of our people. And the reality is the time has come to make a change. This has not worked. We will ban the hard drugs. We will bring in life sentences for mass traffickers and producers. And we will invest the money in treatment and recovery so that we can bring our loved ones home drug-free. My message to anyone out there struggling with addiction: hang on, have hope, help is on the way. We're going to turn it around. And we're going to secure our streets and our borders. Right now, we have 99% of shipping containers that come into Canada have no inspection whatsoever. What do you think the drugs, guns, and stolen cars are able to get through in those shipping containers? We're going to have high-powered scanners, 2,000 more frontline CBSA officers, more watchtowers to stop illegal crossings. You don't have people walking over the border into PEI very often, but it's a little different on the prairies. But yeah, the prairies, it's a little different. The view's a little different. You can see your dog run away for 3 days. It's so flat. But the reality is we need to secure our borders. And I'll tell you how we're going to pay for it, because I said there'd be a dollar-for-dollar law. We're going to pay for it by canceling the wasteful, multi-billion-dollar gun grab that targets law-abiding, licensed hunters and sport shooters. Protect the hunters. The Liberals want to protect turkeys from hunters. We want to protect Canadians from criminals. And we need to protect our entire nation by rebuilding the great Canadian Armed Forces. Thank you. After the lost Liberal decade, where our military has been denied and underfunded, where the money that does go in often goes to botched procurements, bureaucracy, and wasteful political initiatives, we're going to end the nonsense, put the money into frontline equipment for our soldiers. We will rearm our soldiers. We will fill the vacancies within our armed forces. We will procure 4 massive icebreakers that can break open the North and make us dominant once again in the icy northern waters, kicking the Russians and Chinese out. Yes. We will have new fighter aircraft, new Poseidons, and we will open the first Arctic base in Canada since the Cold War, CFB Iqaluit. And we're going to expand the Cadet Corps, get our young people active in the cadets from the very beginning. They'll have more opportunities for mentorship by our great Canadian Armed Forces members. Our members of the Rangers will be teaching these young people about survivalism, punctuality, riflery, and countless other things. And we will be making our young people understand the value of shared service and common identity, because that's what we have to restore in this country, a feeling that we're all in this together. We'll fix the broken immigration system that the Liberals have let run wildly out of control. I love immigration. We had the best system in the world, but we have to bring in people in numbers that we can absorb into our housing, our health care, and our job market. And so we will cap the numbers, and we will reject this wild century initiative idea of increasing our population to 100 million people. That's not the goal. Our goal should be to have a system of immigration that puts Canada first. And speaking of Canada first, we're going to restore and uphold our history. We will no longer allow the knocking down of our monuments. We will sing our songs, tell our stories, and wave our flags. We will reinstate the great Canadian heroes like Terry Fox, our soldiers, the famous five, into our passport. We will be a nation. We will be a nation not of tax collectors and toll masters, gatekeepers and grandees, bureaucrats and busybodies, rulers and rule makers. No, we will be a nation of explorers and entrepreneurs, artists and adventurers, workers and warriors, patriots and pioneers, all bound together by the Canadian promise, a promise that we must rekindle after the lost Liberal decade. And to rekindle it, I send the message today to all those who are giving up and passing on and thinking that the future is dark for them. Have hope, my friends. Change is on the way. If you are struggling, a better day is coming. A better day is coming. Thank you. We're going to bring it home. To the elderly couple that is choosing between heating and eating, have hope. Help is on the way. To the farmer who's wondering how he's going to hold on in these difficult times, hope and change are on the way. To the young couple desperate to have kids and start a family, have hope. Help is on the way. A brighter future is coming. We will be a nation that takes care of its vulnerable, protects its youth, builds homes for the next generation, secures its border, honors its history, restores its freedom, raises its flag, and upholds its promise. The promise that anyone from anywhere who works hard can achieve anything, that hard work gets you a beautiful house on a safe street, protected by brave troops under our proud flag. Canada first, let's bring it home. Thank you.